Welcome, everybody, to the Can't Mayonnaise Kill a Jedi podcast. I am your host, the Artificial Dragon.
I'm Hannah.
And happy 2023, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, this is the first episode of the new year, kind of talking to ourselves in the future. Hello, people in the past. But anyway, so we're going to, as we mentioned before in the previous episode, we're going to try and be more frequent with our podcast episodes here and there. I think the main reason why it's delayed is because I have to wait for the thumbnail art to be made, but hopefully I'm making an agreement with the artist to be a little more preemptive with his thumbnail design so we could bring out the episodes more frequently. But anyway, hope you guys had a wonderful new year. I know I'm going to be working all new year for my job, you know, gotta give out holiday pay and all that fun stuff.
Yep, that's what I did. I worked Christmas Day. Got holiday pay, though.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to my fat-ass paycheck next week, in like a couple weeks, yeah.
And I work New Year's Eve, I think 1 to close?
Yeah.
1 to 8? So it's not that bad.
It's not that bad. At least you're not, like, working at a graveyard shift or something.
Well, that's because we don't stay open that late.
That is really,
Actually, I think we got our hours changed, so we have to go to 1 to 10, actually. Fuck! No!
Anyway, with that unfortunate thing in real life aside, so for a nice little New Year's gift for all the loyal people on Patreon that have been contributing to our highest level on Patreon, I am giving you the sexy evil Padme Amidala. You know, she's got that merchandise showing out wide open. Nothing overly NSFW, but you know, she's tempting you to join the dark side.
It's a very good tease.
It is a very good tease. The alternate timeline where Anakin is really tempted to join the dark side. But anyway, if you want to find our Patreon art pieces, our artists, they're really great artists. They make all of these nice, spicy art pieces. So if you want to download them, make your own posters, or even your background on your phone or anything like that, just go to patreon.com/canmayo and contribute to the highest level on our Patreon so you could have all of these spicy little art pieces.
I mean, that's what I've done with Vitiate and Thrawn.
And exactly.
One's my lock screen, one's my home screen.
Yeah, you gotta represent.
Represent the Sims.
Yeah. And if anybody just wants to join the community, join our Discord server, as before, you could contribute to the lowest amount of $3 and just be a part of the Can Mayonnaise Kill a Jedi community. It's still a little bit small, but we're still having a great time with that server.
Oh, yeah.
Expecting to get a lot more stickers this upcoming year. We already got the Mon Calamari whoa thing and the simping to Gruda, which I'm sure Hannah will be using a lot in that server.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, I'm pretty sure it's pretty predictable what the subject of this podcast episode is going to be.
Yep, we're talking about the Trade Federation.
The Trade Federation. The evil, greedy mega corporation that was introduced in the prequel trilogy. For better or for worse.
I
will be honest, the Trade Federation have always been one of my most favorite factions when I got introduced to Star Wars. I mean, I didn't really get into, like, the politics or the, the trade agreements or, economy, all that stuff just went over my head as a kid, but they have a lot of really cool battle droids. Their vehicles, their droids are much more intimidating, in my opinion, than lousy stormtroopers that miss every time.
Everybody's introduction, at least our generation's introduction to droids, are the B-1 battle droids.
Yeah, the B-1 battle droids, infamously used by the Trade Federation before they became the main foot soldiers of the Confederacy.
Roger, roger.
So yeah, this will be a slight introduction to my main favorite faction of Star Wars. I'll be talking about the Trade Federation, and then it will be the lead up to the Confederacy of Independent Systems. I could dive more into the other mega corporations that make up the Confederacy, but they don't have a extensive lore compared to the Trade Federation.
They'll just be a cliff note.
Yeah, exactly. I'll probably like mention them in the Confederacy episode or just a separate episode where we talk about mega corporations in general. But semantics, we're gonna worry about that. Future Isaac is gonna worry about that. Anyway, so the Trade Federation is obviously inspired by the real life British East India Trading Company.
Oh, I did not know that.
Oh yeah, I haven't watched any of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies lately, but they give that sort of vibe in the movies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like in, what was it, World's End, where, I forget the name of the British asshole, the main antagonist, where he takes control of Davy Jones, has him kill all the pirates and everything, and, just wants to make a monopoly on all the seas without any piracy or anything like that. Mm-hmm. That's the main inspiration of a trade federation. They kind of have that similar vibe, and if you really think about it, the companies like the British East India Trading Company had entire fleets and economies that are...
It expanded the world.
Yeah.
Their expansion was across the world.
Oh, yeah. And
it was ridiculous.
It was very ridiculous back then when entire corporations can rival entire countries.
Yeah.
But anyway, but the Trade Federation were also inspired by, oh yeah, here's another interesting tad bit. You want to know how much okay, so there's the East Indian Trading Company, and then there's the Dutch East India Trading Company. There's like multiple Indian trading companies. You want to know how much they are worth in today's money?
How much?
$7.4 trillion.
Good fuck.
Yeah, they were rich and powerful.
God damn.
Yeah, back in the day, you do not want to piss those people off.
Oh, pirates back in that day, too, if they worked hard enough, were as powerful, too.
Yeah. And additionally, this is from George Lucas's direct quote, by the way. The Trade Federation's viceroy, our good old buddy Newt Gingrich, is based on former Speaker of the United States, Newt Gingrich, who had written the book Contract with America. And, like, I don't dive too much into politics, but there's always that saying that America isn't driven by the people. It's driven by corporations, that sort of thing.
Newt Gingrich is an American politician and author who served as the 50th Speaker of the United States House of Representatives from 1995 to 1999. Mm-hmm. And the Star Wars movies came out in like the late 90s, early 2000s, so...
Yeah.
Big old fuck you to U.S. politics, huh?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, George Lucas can be clever sometimes, and other
Very
times
clever.
he's just...
He's an asshole.
He's just smooth brain most of the time. Anyway,
Still not telling us Yoda's secret.
Yeah. Tell me your secrets, Lucas. Anyway, so that's enough about its background, who inspired the Trade Federation, all that sort of stuff. The Trade Federation goes by two separate names. It's known as the Trade Federation of Planets, or it goes by the name of the Galactic Trade Federation.
I've heard just the Trade Federation. So
yeah, but it's simpler that way.
it is simpler that way.
But it's kind of a way to think about, like, it's not just a single section of space that they rule. It's like the entirety of the galaxy that they rule, if you think about it. So the trade... Just a little clip notes before we go into their history. The Trade Federation is a shipping conglomerate which eventually evolved into a powerful commerce guild, trade cartel, megacorporation, and lobbying group.
I mean, it's better than the Hutts.
Yeah.
Just
a little bit. Just a little bit.
Not a lot. Mm-hmm. But in some ways, they're a bit better than the Hutts.
Just a little bit. And it's also kind of the same thing with history in general. Like, a lot of people just assume, oh, the Trade Federation, all these mega corporations, they were just always there. And that's kind of the thing with history, is like, where did Walmart come from? It just didn't appear overnight. It's a slow, gradual buildup of Walmart and how it became the the widespread company it is today, that sort of thing. Kind of the same thing with a trade federation. It didn't exactly appear in a vacuum. There's a lot of steps and circumstances that went into making the trade federation.
Sounds tough.
It is. So the most important thing to understand about the trade federation is to understand the political climate of when it was founded.
As we say here, Star Wars politics are so much better than real politics.
Yeah. So the year that the Trade Federation was built, or founded, more accurately, is 350 years before the Battle of Yavin. Just to give you a general idea, this is like 650 years after the Sith got extincted, quote unquote.
Quote unquote.
And after the extinction of the Sith, the Republic were all like, finally, the great enemy has been vanquished. There's no need for a military. There's no need for standing fleets, that sort of thing. We could go back to everyday living and just, disarm ourselves of any military-grade technology, have our membership worlds protect themselves with their own militaries. There's no need because, the Sith are vanquished. I'm sure we'll have to worry about pirates and everything, and this...
right in the background, and somehow Palpatine returned.
And this started in an era called the Golden Age of the Republic.
Okay.
Or, if you want to go by canon standards, the High Republic era.
Okay, I was about to ask, this is the High Republic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's basically a different name for the same thing. I like to think of the High Republic as the Golden Age of the Republic because it's easier to understand.
Yeah.
But anyway, at around this period, the Outer Rim was still a unexplored region of space. It's basically the Star Wars version of a Wild West at this point. A lot of planets haven't been explored. The Republic hasn't exactly extended its reach beyond and, put in lawful institution to keep an eye on people or trade or anything. So it's essentially lawless, leaving up to individual communities and worlds to fend for themselves, basically.
Uh-huh. And
there are a lot of shipping corporations that kind of find opportunities. So for a lot of these shipping corporations, they see opportunity in the Outer Rim of with trading and everything, of that sort of stuff. The problem is, each one of these shipping corporations do not want to work with each other.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Fuck you, this is mine.
It's like that meme with Soldier. This is mine now.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's also competition, obviously, but it's a huge problem for the Republic and people who want to move into a new frontier and find their own home. A lot of these shipping corporations have hyperspace navigational data, which is basically not something easily accessible by Star Wars citizens at the time. And think of it as think of each hyperspace as a highway in space. Sure, you could take back roads or whatever to reach your destination, but that's generally going to take way, way longer.
Oh, yeah.
And if you just go on the established hyperspace route, it cuts your time by half. And these corporations were like, fuck you, you gotta pay a fine.
Oh, God.
Imagine Route 66. It cuts over numerous states, from California to Texas, wherever.
It's from Chicago, Illinois, to LA.
Thank you.
Holy shit.
Yeah, imagine, you're not allowed to get on Route 66 unless you, pay a fine or something.
Fuck that.
That's basically what it was like back then.
It's like the tolls of New York City,
Yep.
put on highways.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck that.
And the Republic were all like, this is kind of bullshit.
Kind of.
And now, granted, the Republic could have handled this themselves, but they basically decided, okay, as we've established multiple times in the previous episodes, the Republic is kind of corrupt as hell. It's all we could solve this ourselves, but we'll let somebody else deal with that.
What the fuck?
So they created this small faction of multiple species, of multiple companies and all that sort of stuff. And this new shipping charter company was the Trade Federation.
Oh, wow.
It was actually a Republic-founded ship charting company. And they're...
How the fuck did they switch sides?
So, I know, it's multiple steps to this. But basically, the Trade Federation's job is to mediate between the shipping companies. Like, hey guys, let's go ahead and share our hyperspace routes. It could be better for everybody. It could be better for the entire galaxy. You could get your economy renewed.
Just
That's
find
kind
the
of
middle ground. They were the middlemen.
Yeah. They were basically like that, like the mom who puts two of the quarreling brothers together and be like, make up. And they would like do it diplomatically with negotiations or just outright buying out the other companies.
Yeah, that's what happens when you have money.
So yeah, in the beginning, the Trade Federation started off with pretty noble intentions.
Yeah, at the beginning, what the fuck happened?
Yeah, like, they were legitimately kind of a good guys, or at the very least, not as evil as you thought they were in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, let me see. It eventually began to grow beyond its original goal and became a very powerful entity that they were able to lobby trade interests in the Senate, allowing new regions of the Outer Rim to provide trade and commerce. And they even created multiple new hyperspace routes that led to the Outer Rim and to the core worlds.
Jeez.
So yeah, they were doing a lot of really good things. They even made networks of retail outlets, wayland stations, and landing fields, which is like the space equivalent of like truck stops and everything. Mm-hmm. And they were able to bring prosperity to long isolated systems in the galaxy. It began to even have its own merchant fleet of ships created by Harsh Castle Drive, and that's where you remember the donut ships, right?
Yeah.
They were originally cargo freighters.
Really?
The Star Wars equivalent to semi-trucks. And then, they got created into battleships later on.
Yep.
But anyway, the Trade Federation got their own merchant fleet together, to bring commerce and trade and prosperity to the Outer Rim. Problem was, though, there are new legislations, like the Republic basically disarmed everybody. Aside from planetary governments, which are allowed to protect themselves, no individual entity are allowed to have military-grade weapons. For the Trade Federation, they're like going out into the lawless backwater region of the Outer Rim, where most likely heavily armed gangsters or pirates are waiting for them and just waiting to pounce on their precious cargo. Mm-hmm. It's like the equivalent of going to the gas station in the middle of the night. You pay for your ramen or whatever because you're hungry. You look outside and you see the sketchy looking guy right next to your car waiting with a knife in his hands. And you're all like, and you just like go up to the cashier and you're like, hey, there's a very sketchy looking guy out there. Can you escort me there? And the cashier's like, no, nah, I'm not going to do that. And
I'd call the police, but I wouldn't escort you.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
And it's like one of those situations where I could call for backup, but it's going to be way too long. They're kind of useless at that point, and it's all like, fuck it, I might as well just bring a gun with me at all times. And that's how the Trade Federation kind of lobbied to the Senate, like, hey, we have these pirates and shit that are going to jump on our precious cargo. Can we at least be able to defend ourselves against these pirates? And the Senate was like, sure.
Of course, the Senate rolls over for fucking everything.
And the Trade Federation developed their own paramilitary organization called the Trade Defense Force. It was entirely comprised of... Originally, it was comprised of organic soldiers. This is before they were replaced by battle droids and everything. And it was in the TDF Marines, as they were called. They were the prominent soldiers of the Trade Federation, and they were so well armed and trained that they even gained the admiration of the Republic's own judicial forces. Like, these guys, imagine, like, Amazon if they had their own private military force. But they're as well trained as your average police officer.
Interesting.
Yeah. And, like, it's not like the Trade Federation asked for this because they want to conquer planets or everything. It's legitimately they want to protect their own interests, make sure that pirates don't get their precious booty and everything. And with the introduction of the Trade Defense Force, they liberated numerous systems from the grasp of these pirates. Because you gotta understand, like, there are numerous sectors in the galaxy that have been completely lawless, completely isolated from the Republic, or at least don't have the means of fighting off the pirates, and they were continuously under the thumb of these raiders and everything. And then the Trade Federation showed up, told the pirates to fuck off, and they were able to prosper.
Nice.
Yeah. At its height, the Trade Federation was comprised of numerous species. Like, the Nemodians are the most famous race. They become, like, the literal heads of the Trade Federation later down the line, but they were, like, one of many races that comprise of the Trade Federation. And it even gotten to the point where even the Republic themselves envy the Trade Federation as the ideal federation, because each member had equal representation within the organization. And they, in the beginning, they had a viceroy, but they also had a chair of advisors who, like, dictate, like, your normal corporation with multiple, like, departments, like, voting on certain things and vetoing others.
Yep.
It was pretty much kept in check, but as we'll go into, that kind of changes just a tiny bit. Let me see, though. There's even this one really famous incident. In this sector called the where the fuck was it? The Reski sector in the Outer Rim, which is a member of the Republic, but its authority over the sector was essentially non-existent, and it became a pirate haven, being large enough to outgun the sector's planetary security forces. Like, they were everywhere. They were like cockroaches. And there was, ironically enough, it wasn't the presence of the pirates that got the Trade Federation's attention, but there's one famous incident where there was actually this plague that happened at that sector, and everybody was catching this contagion, and they reached out to the Republic, hey, could we get a cure? Could we get some humanitarian aid? And the Republic was like, sure, we'll send in some humanitarian aid. And they sent, like, several merchant fleets to that sector, but obviously they got destroyed by the pirates there. And, like, while the pirates were salvaging all the ships that were carrying the antidote, just 5 trillion vials that were holding the cure were just destroyed, left to be in the vacuum of space.
Oh, shit.
And the Republic obviously stood by and did nothing.
What?
Yep. They were like, oh man, that sucks, that cure, oh man. Hey, could you please send more? What? Oh, no, I actually have a party to go to. Bye.
Oh my god.
And there are, like, local companies that, smaller businesses are a lot more moral than your bigger corporations or anything like that. And they reached out to the Trade Federation. And they were like, hey, we're kind of in the middle of a crisis. Could you please help us? Could you bring in your Trade Defense Force with these new antidotes? And in return, we will willingly become subsidiaries of your company. And the Trade Federation were like, sure, we'll accept. And they assembled a sizable fleet of, like, numerous corvettes, destroyers, and gunships. And they went into the sector and they cleaned house with the pirates.
Damn.
Like, within an hour, they annihilated one pirate gang. And then within a couple of days, they destroyed one of the largest pirate gangs within the sector. And then within a year, piracy was just non-existent.
Wow, so they snuffed out piracy for a while.
Yeah, they cleaned up house.
Wow.
Yeah, essentially like the same thing with the East Trading Company in World's End, where he just took control of a kraken and destroyed all the pirates in the sea.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like the Trade Federation legitimately brought prosperity to any system that wanted to work with them and bring trade. Like, if you look at this famous picture right here in the Discord chat, like this
My
is...
question is, what the fuck happened between then and in canon? When, like, how the Trade Federation fucked over Liel.
Yeah. Like, there's, like, legitimately one image of a trade defense force. And if you look in this picture, it's not like these people are joining the Trade Federation out of greed or anything like that. These are legitimate people who have their own families. They joined the Trade Federation because they believe that they're making a difference in the galaxy.
Oh, yeah, looks like it.
Yeah, they are bringing legitimate change to the worlds that they liberated from these pirate scum. You know, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And many sectors, as I mentioned before, prospered. They ruthlessly suppressed opposition, and they had they dominated the galactic trade within the Outer Rim. Though, as most things tend to happen in Star Wars, things basically change slowly, but it's still there. At around 150 years before the Battle of Yavin, trade between the core and the Rim were beginning to dry up. There were like no companies that saw the Outer Rim as, you know, prosperous or anything like that, and we're like, no, whatever, we'll just stay where we are. And the stagnation invited more and more criminals to the isolated parts of the galaxy, and the Republic, wanting to jumpstart commerce in the Outer Rim, they passed a bill creating what is called the Free Trade Zones. It essentially made the entirety of the Outer Rim tax-free.
I want to go there.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah. This was meant to encourage more businesses and merchants to expand into the Outer Rim. Like, oh my god, yeah. Fuck the core where I have to pay taxes up the wazoo. Might as well go to the Outer Rim where I make $1 million a week or something like that without taking taxes out and everything.
I think we can all agree, even you and I as adults.
Oh yeah, totally.
We can all agree with our fan base. Taxes fucking suck!
Yeah, that's one thing I'm not looking forward to this next year.
I'm glad my mom's a tax expert.
I let an app do that, but semantics. And problem was, this essentially made the Trade Federation and other megacorporations that already dominated the Outer Rim more powerful than they were before, because they had to pay tax. They didn't have
to pay the extra.
Yeah, they didn't have to pay the extra taxes, and they had all of this income building up. They're like, ooh, awesome. And through
Good job,
this,
Republic.
Yeah, they're noble. Their intentions were noble, but
it didn't work out.
It didn't work out that well. No. This caused the Trade Federation to move on to more impoverished sectors, and ultimately, those sectors, they were Republic membership worlds, and the Trade Federation was so powerful that they basically had political control over all of those worlds, which means they had says or votes within the Senate and everything. With this new gain of power and, political sway within the Senate, the Trade Federation held maps of hyperspace routes closely, never sharing them with other corporations. Doesn't that sound familiar?
Yep.
They became the thing they were made to destroy.
So this is when they start to turn?
Yep, basically.
Okay.
And just to give you an idea of the quality of hyperspace routes that the Trade Federation had access to, nobody else except for the Republic and the higher levels of the Republic anyway, and the Jedi Order, they were the only people that had access to similar qualities. Within 2 generations, the Trade Federation controlled enough senatorial votes to hamper competitors, influence the courts, and stall legislation. And they gained enough influence that they even got a seat within the Senate at around 67 years before the Battle of Yavin.
Okay, so this is about right before the prequels?
This is like 30 years before the prequels.
Okay.
However, the Republic starting to realize that the first draft of the free trade zones was not swaying the way they wanted it to. They decided
They didn't realize that until a long time later. What the fuck?
So yeah, they decided to reform the trade defense zone, basically allowing startup companies to have their own slice of the pie within the Outer Rim, and the Trade Federation were like, okay, fine. They didn't gain a seat within the Senate until the reformation of the free trade zones, because it's all like, okay, if I'm going to give up a majority of the Outer Rim to these startup companies, can I get some sort of compensation out of it? And the Republic gave them a seat within the Senate.
Oh.
Yeah. So, a nice little trade-off. Like, they lost power, but they also gained power at the same time.
Somewhat.
Yeah, somewhat. They even...
do you see how many seats are actually in the fucking Senate?
They're like thousands.
It's amazing how they even get anything done.
Yeah, very true, very true. So, in around 65 years before the Battle of Yavin, the Trade Federation gained full rights to construct a spaceport for a certain planet. You want to guess what that is?
I have no guesses.
Naboo?
Oh.
Yeah. It's okay. Basically the Trade Federation saw that, so the Naboo, they had a very rich culture, and they are extremely rich, but they weren't exactly high on technology or anything. They were kind of traditionalists and, loved the environment, and they were economically friendly and everything.
They kind of sound like Alderaan.
They just kind of, except it's not icy mountains or anything.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Naboo had one important resource that the Trade Federation really wanted. At the core of the planet is huge reserves of plasma.
Ah.
And the Trade Federation was like, we want a monopoly on that shit. It's kind of like, imagine plasma as the oil of Star Wars.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so they had to get it.
They had to get it. It's like that joke wherever, I'm not sure if you saw that video where these random people in the Middle East find a oil pocket, and everybody in the comments just says, we gotta teach these people freedom, democracy. That's kind of the same thing with the Trade Federation. Ooh, we gotta liberate these people. And yeah, the Trade Federation gained their rights to the plasma reserves at the Naboo, creating their own spaceport, and I think that's kind of one of the steps that allowed the Naboo to become part of a republic, was because of the Trade Federation and everything. Yeah, pretty, however, even though they were able to benefit positively, the Naboo were kind of angered that the Trade Federation would sell their plasma for 10 or even 20 times more than what it was paid for.
Profit.
Yeah, here's $5. Okay, here you go. $100, everybody.
You gotta sell shit for profit, but when it fucks over everyone else, it's not that good.
Yeah. And at this point, the Trade Federation is obviously becoming very, very corrupt and greedy and everything. And at this point, the Senate were kind of just
fucking understatement, especially when they're run by a Nemoidian.
Not yet, anyway. This was still the Equal Rights to All Species Federation.
Oh, okay.
While many within the Senate were disgusted with the Trade Federation's corruption, predatory business deals, and extinction of representation within the sectors it rules over, there are still many that admired the megacorporation for essentially bringing an end to piracy within the Outer Rim.
Essentially.
Yeah, yes, they might be taxing me to the 9 hells and back, but we were a lot better off than when the pirates were around. That sort of mentality.
Yeah. You might get taxed, but at least you won't die.
Yeah, exactly. Though, with the elimination of old enemies, the Trade Federation would find new enemies.
Of course.
Yeah. There were multiple factions that rose to challenge the Trade Federation specifically. There's the terrorist organization called the Nebula Front and the Stark Commercial Combine, which is a fancy way of saying a union of pirates. Though new power began to take hold within the organization itself, with a faction of Nemodians gaining more and more political power within the Trade Federation. The reason why the Nemodians are a significant part of the Trade Federation is because they are legitimately good businessmen. Like, they are ruthless to the very core.
But they know what to do when it comes to business.
They are absolute geniuses when it comes to business, and that's why they were able to gain a foothold within the Trade Federation since the very beginning.
Grubs.
Yeah, we'll eventually do an episode on the Nemodians. They are kind of interesting, but they'll just be a minor footnote in this episode. But anyway, the Trade Federation's role within the galaxy would forever change in the wake of an event called the Stark Hyperspace War. It is a small conflict between the Jedi Order and the Stark Commercial Combine. This kind of happened due to dwindling supply of Bacta across the galaxy. Bacta being, the medical supplies and everything to Star Wars, the miracle drug and everything. Though secretly, it was perpetrated by the Trade Federation and this Bacta Corporation, which is the largest supplier of it, to dry up prices of Bacta for a larger profit by artificially decreasing the production of Bacta. So, more money.
Yep, more money.
And this, by the way, this was one of Quinlan Voss's first missions as a Padawan to kind of undermine this conspiracy and everything.
Oh.
It's surrounded in a old comic when the first episode came out. Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan took part in this war as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Plo Koon was there. He had a Jedi Master named Tyvaka, who was a Wookiee Jedi Master. They got killed.
Of course.
And yeah, it's this whole entire thing. I will probably talk about the Stark Hyperspace War in its own episode because it's very intricate. I do not have the time for today. But point is, the Trade Federation kind of perpetrated this, used the Stark Commercial Combine as a scapegoat and everything, trying to artificially increase the prices of Bacta across the galaxy. They were found out, and the current viceroy of the Trade Federation was forced to step down. Newt Gunray, by the way, was the senator of the Trade Federation at this point. And that's when he took the position of a viceroy. He
saw his opportunity and took it.
Yep, he is. As cowardly as he is, he takes that opportunity instantly. And then after this conflict, this basically increased tensions between the Republic and the Trade Federation. Like, the Republic were being extremely suspicious of the Trade Federation now, and in turn, the Trade Federation started to build up their military forces more and more, and that's when they slowly started building up their own droid army, because their organic troops are kind of obsolete at this point.
Yeah.
And, the Nemodians are cheapskates, basically.
Cheapskates, cowards, we could come up with a whole list of insults for Nemodians.
Oh, yeah. The Trade Federation basically started to radicalize more and more and more. And at the same time, spoiler alert, the entire conflict was perpetrated by Darth Sidious to see what would happen.
Of fucking course!
Yeah, Sidious is behind everything. But anyway, and at this point, the Doctorate is slowly starting to gain more members from Nemodians and everything. Like, a majority of the Doctorate is made up of Nemodians at this point when Gunray takes power and everything. Realizing that megacorporations were becoming too powerful, Supreme Chancellor Valorum, you heard of the name, I assume.
Heard of the name, Does he have a face?
Yeah. He's the chancellor that was before Palpatine.
I know that, but
Yeah.
I just...
Yeah, he appears in episode 2.
Okay.
Not episode 2, episode 1.
I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, Valorum. So Valorum advocated restoring taxation into...
Okay.
Yeah, that's what he looks like. Valorum advocated restoring taxation to the free trade zones in an effort to kind of curb the Trade Federation's influence within the Outer Rim. Obviously, the Trade Federation took this in stride.
Of course they did.
Yeah. Newt Gunray, and at this point, Sidious kind of revealed himself to Newt Gunray, kind of making him into his little puppet to kind of poke the bear more and more.
Of course.
And with this new collaboration, Newt Gunray started to gain more and more power within the Trade Federation, and he ensured his complete control when several members of a doctorate were assassinated during a trade agreement and everything. And he replaced those members with only Nemodians, effectively making the doctorate a bunch of yes men. And he became the absolute ruler of a Trade Federation. And realizing what was staring them right in the face, the Galactic Senate drafted a resolution that would effectively abolish the free trade zones. And you want to know who was a huge contributor to this resolution?
Who?
The up-and-coming Queen of Naboo, Padme Amidala.
Oh.
And that was kind of a motivation of why the Trade Federation blockaded Naboo, because, the ruler basically wanted to take away their power, and this was them.
Padme had the good idea.
And
Padme
this
always
was
has the good ideas.
Yeah, and this was basically their way of protesting, like, we're going to blockade Naboo. We already have rights on it, so this is perfectly legal.
Assholes.
Yeah. And what happens, the entirety of episode 1, Newt Gunray tries to convince Padme Amidala to sign the resolution to not break up the free trade zones and everything. Padme makes up a resistance movement, fights off the Trade Federation, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. We know that. And then Newt Gunray goes to prison. And inevitably, while many expected the Trade Federation to dissolve as a corporation after the blockade of Naboo, it did not, no.
They stood strong.
They did. Despite being charged with serious crimes, Newt Gunray would remain viceroy while going to 4 separate trials to the Supreme Court.
I mean, people with power can still stay in power if they have enough followers.
Mm-hmm. And, he's got the money. Also, it probably helps that Darth Sidious was helping him out in the background.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He's Palpatine's sugar daddy.
Yeah, pretty much. Sugar daddy Palpatine. And if anything, the Trade Federation's military diversified with new ship types and new droids being introduced. And as the years went by, Newt Gunray was approached by this lovely noble from Sereno.
So this is where Count Dooku sticks his nose in.
Yep. And the Trade Federation essentially became an important member of a confederacy, though the viceroy would only join on one condition: the assassination of a person that humiliated him so long ago.
So that's why Padme started getting assassination attempts.
Yep, because Newt Gunray wanted...
Newt Gunray's like, fuck that bitch!
Fuck that bitch, she humiliated me! Yeah, Padme was like, what, 18 during that time too?
Most likely.
Yeah. Just imagine who's going to win: a galaxy-wide megacorporation with endless swarms of battle droid, or one pretty girl. Obviously the pretty girl. Even though Newt Gunray was a... Newt Gunray. Newt Gunray. I'm going to pronounce him like that from now on. Newt Gunray. Even though Newt Gunray was a prominent member of the Separatists, the Trade Federation was proclaimed neutral within the Clone Wars. They were basically benefiting from both sides. Like, you saw that clip with the Nemodian senator going to the Toydarians and saying Newt Gunray is an extremist, that sort of thing. Yeah, you remember that. And then, like, they're benefiting both sides of a war, and it's very likely that the Republic knew that it was a huge crock of shit. But what are they really going to do?
Like, oh, Newt Gunray's an extremist. We don't work with him.
Yeah.
He's pulling the strings of the fucking background.
Yep. Like, but what can the Republic really do? Like,
nothing, really.
The Trade Federation is so deep within the roots of a republic, getting rid of them is just going to cause more problems than anything.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, Trade Federation, you're out of a republic. Okay, where are you going to get all of your hyperspace routes? Where are you going to get all of your important supplies to the Outer Rim worlds? Where are you going to get all of this important stuff? Whoa, let's not be hasty now. yeah, I'm pulling the kid thing. But yeah, just benefiting from both sides of war.
So why did Dooku decide to stick his nose in?
Well, number one, probably because Sidious wanted him to.
Aside from that.
And number two, like, the Trade Federation, like, I know there's many other corporations that have their own privatized armies and everything, but the Trade Federation were, like, the big honchos. They had, like, the largest droid army at the time. They already had their donut ships with insane amounts of firepower. They also probably had the largest political power and everything, and convincing many of their membership worlds to turn to the side of the separatists and everything. Like, it's more of practicality, because if Dooku did not wrap many of the mega corporations within the Confederacy, they probably wouldn't have a army that could stand up to the Republic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's like a necessary evil sort of thing.
A bit.
Just a little bit. I will dive more into that with the Separatist episode, because it's really deep and intricate, and it's really interesting to talk about. Okay, Newt Gunray obviously would be killed by Darth Vader at the end of the Clone Wars on Mustafar, and that is kind of essentially when the Trade Federation kind of went downhill from there.
Well, no shit.
Like,
all the representatives are dead.
Yes, Gunray was dead, but he soon had a successor who briefly became the Viceroy, but that Viceroy was basically held at gunpoint to basically sign an agreement to nationalize the Trade Federation to the Empire.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So
the Trade Federation, in the end, got absorbed into the Empire.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of mega corporations were basically part of the Empire at that point, because what the fuck are we gonna do?
Exactly. The Republic is gone.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Yeah, and like, even though the Trade Federation has been absorbed by the Empire, there are still small pockets of resistance that, you know, put up a good fight against the Empire in its early days. And officially, the Trade Federation is still a significant power. Like, they still had a seat in the Senate and everything. Like, they still had quote-unquote political power, even though they were just more of a puppet state than anything else. And officially, the Trade Federation dissolved when Palpatine dissolved the Imperial Senate.
I was going to say, what happened when Palpatine took over?
Yeah.
So he completely said, you know, fuck you, you're done.
Yeah, basically. I do want to point out
Fucker needs a power boner.
Yeah, the Trade Federation is just his pet that he just throws away once it's, you know, served its purpose.
Once he got bored of it.
Yeah, I remember this really great comic where, there's this comic where Darth Vader goes on a mission for Palpatine, and he has this smuggler who he took hostage because he's the guy who's bringing supplies to a rebel base and everything. And the smuggler outright looked at Darth Vader and he said, "You remind me of a childhood toy that I was obsessed with, but then I discarded once the new toy came by."
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And
exactly, Vader is Palpatine's plaything until he has no more use for him.
Yeah, exactly.
Fuck you.
Yeah, he was fully expecting Vader to die by Luke Skywalker's hand, but
that didn't happen.
That didn't happen, no. However, even though the Trade Federation didn't exactly have a prominent place in the galaxy anymore, their members and, you know, their battle droids, their ships were still there and everything. They're like still small holdout factions trying to fight back and maintain power within their sphere of influence and everything. And they survived long enough to become a part of a rebel alliance.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
There's even this one prominent character by the name of Captain Belix Hufa, who is a Nemodian member of a Nemodian trade defense force who became a prominent privateer for the rebel alliance.
You send a picture?
There's no picture of him, actually.
Oh, damn.
He probably would have looked really cool, though. Like, could you imagine a Nemodian taking up the role of a pirate against the Empire?
Yeah, that's a out there one for stereotypes, especially the stereotypes for Nemodians.
And ironic, because he was once part of a faction that essentially brought piracy to near extinction.
He became the very thing you sought to destroy.
Yeah, that iconic meme and everything. So yeah, that is the Trade Federation. What do you think, Anna?
It was okay for a start. I think once we get more into the Confederacy of United Systems, right? Or not?
Confederacy of Independent Systems, yeah.
Yes, and until we get into the Confederacy, I think I'll be a little bit more interested.
Yeah.
But this was a good starting point.
Yeah, I mean, like, sure, the Trade Federation isn't overly interesting as a faction, but the way it started off as this, it started off with pretty noble goals, first off. But it's like, with most corporations, like, I don't know, like, Amazon originally started off as this company to ship off books and everything, but then it slowly started building up as this worldwide phenomenon and everything.
Yep, they had to put their toes into everything.
Yeah, and then they had to start cutting corners and everything, and everybody just looks at Amazon with contempt and everything.
Yep.
Yeah, but yeah, the Trade Federation is kind of a fascinating case. Like, even though this is placed within the setting of a sci-fi universe, it's relatively a realistic thing to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my take on the Trade Federation. So anyway, that's our episode of Can Mayonnaise Kill a Jedi? Or in this case, how many planets can the Trade Federation conquer?
Or how many times can we say Trade Federation?
Or New Gunway. Well, anyway, I had a fun time with this episode. I'm looking forward to starting with the Confederacy of Independent Systems, one of my most favorite factions in all of Star Wars.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Anyway, hope you guys are having a wonderful start to your new year. Make sure to have keep with your New Year's resolutions. I cannot English right now. Keep up with your New Year's resolutions, all that fun stuff. I want to work out more often, and I also want to bring in more podcast episodes more often. We'll see if I could stick to that schedule, but I'm very optimistic for this.
We'll see what happens.
Anyway,
we shall see what the new year holds for us.
Yeah, and I hope the Force remains with you, and make sure you don't go to your local Trade Federation with talks of plasma storage, otherwise they'll want to conquer your ass. Anyway, goodbye!
May the Force ever serve you.
May the Schwartz be with you.